with a grateful heart. Give thanks for the Holy One. Give thanks for He has given Jesus Christ, His Son. Give thanks for the Holy One. Give thanks for what the Lord has done. Give thanks for He has given Jesus Christ, His Son. And now we say, I am strong. Let the poor say, I am rich because of what the Lord has done for us. Give
Jesus.
my life and Allen Chapel's realm. I thank God for her. Thank you, Lord. Let us bow and have a word of prayer. Father God, we come before you, Father. Humbled. Thank you. Grateful for this opportunity, God. Grateful for another opportunity to worship in your name, God. Father God, I know that you have appointed me the messenger for this occasion, God, but I'm hoping to leave here changed, just as I'm hoping that the lives of someone else are touched or changed, God. Father God, I'm asking you to come on in, God. I'm pleading for you to be with us during this service, God. Father God, that we not leave here the same way we came in. Father God, if just one person receives a word, God, we know that your will has gone forth, God. Now I ask that you speak to me, God, as you speak through me. God, I ask that you be with us all. These things we ask in your Son, Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. I've been changed. But most importantly, when I called, he answered. So how could I not answer when he called? First, giving honor to God, who is the head of my life, to Pastor Mills, to my family and friends, to Allen Chapel. You all say often that I am a blessing to Allen Chapel, but I want you to know that it is you who are the blessing to me. I could go on and on about thanks to individuals, but I just want you to know that it is my love for you that helps to drive me. So just keep me in prayer as I go forward. April 12th, 2014 is a day that I will never forget. It was a Saturday, and that day truly changed my life forever. It was on that day that I heard the voice of the Lord saying to me, "Whom shall I send? And who will go for us?" And I replied as did Isaiah, "Here am I, Lord, send me." Although the day began as an ordinary day, it quickly and without warning became an extraordinary day. God had decided that April 12th would be the day that I would begin my transition into who and what He needed me to be. The topic for today comes from the book of Isaiah, chapter 30, verses 18 through 21. If you will turn with me. Isaiah chapter 30, verses 18 through 21. Beginning at verse 18, "And therefore the Lord earnestly waits, expecting, looking, and longing to be gracious to you. And therefore He lifts Himself up, that He may have mercy on you and show loving kindness to you. For the Lord is a God of justice. Blessed, happy, fortunate, to be envied are all those who earnestly wait for Him, who expect and look and long for Him, for His victory. His favor, His love, His peace, His joy, and His matchless unbroken companionship. O people who dwell in Zion, at Jerusalem, you will weep no more. He will surely be gracious to you at the sound of your cry. When He hears it, He will answer you. And though the Lord gives you the bread of adversity and the water of affliction, yet your teacher will not hide Himself anymore. For your eyes will constantly behold your teacher. And your ears will hear a word behind you saying, "This is the way, walk in it." When you turn to the right hand and when you turn to the left. May the Lord add a blessing to the reading and hearing of His word. The key verse on today, which I will read again, is verse 21. "And your ears will hear a word behind you saying, 'This is the way, walk in it,' when you turn to the right hand and when you turn to the left." Amen. On the day that God spoke to me, as I stated before, it started out as an ordinary day. And the topic, turn around, I battled with it because I wanted to do my own thing, but God decided He would have His way. So I'm learning, and He's teaching me early. It's not about me. It's about the word that He wants me to deliver. Yes. On that day, we were headed to a movie, my sister and my daughter. And our intent was just to have some lunch and go to see a movie. And we didn't have any particular movie or any particular time to be there. And so we stopped to have a bite for lunch. And as we were leaving the restaurant and we were turning right out of the intersection, headed up State Street to the movie theater, we had the red light. So we were able to make a legal right turn onto State. And the cars facing us also had a red light, so they were supposed to stop. I was not the driver. I was on the passenger side, and my daughter was in the back seat on the driver's side. And as we were completing our right turn, I heard a voice, and it was a small whisper, nothing alarming, that said, "Turn around." All right. At first I thought, okay, well maybe Vanessa said something and I just didn't hear it clearly. And again I heard it say, "Turn around." As I turned, I noticed that the car across from us was running the light and was to the point to where it was going to T-bone us and would have hit and impacted on my daughter's side. I was able to say in time, Vanessa hit the gas, and she sped up, and we avoided the accident. What I didn't understand at the time was, because of the alarming of the near-miss accident is that there were more things that God was trying to say to me in saying turn around. Number one, I avoided us being hit. But it was kind of like a mic check to see if I was listening. What I didn't know was that I would receive my orders only a few hours later. As I said before, we didn't have a particular movie to go see or a particular time to be there. And once we entered the movie theater, the only show that was playing when we got there was God Is Not Dead. So we went into the movies thinking that we would just have an entertaining time. And Abe and Vanessa, they had a great time. I was miserable through the whole movie and couldn't figure out why. Didn't know why I was crying. Didn't know why I could not stop crying. It was then that I heard a much louder voice tell me, "You will teach." This is not the first time that God had said that to me, nor the first time that I heard his voice. But it was the first time that I fully understood what he meant. And so what he was telling me, not only to turn around to avoid an accident, but sometimes we travel down particular paths that we think are for us. But when God says turn around, we must listen. Isaiah's mission was not only to warn or reprimand the people in hopes that he could keep them on the right path and headed in the right direction, but to instill an intense faith in God. He brought them courage and fortitude at a time when they were suffering fear from the threat of the Assyrian Empire. Not just any fear, but it was described as a mortal fear. You have to understand that this was not an ordinary fear. Mortal fear is described as being much more intense. It's a fear that will bind you emotionally, physically, and spiritually. I know I'm not the only one to experience mortal fear. That fear that you forget how to call on the name of Jesus. That is a mortal fear. That fear that causes us to stress to the point that we bring on a physical illness. That is mortal fear. Why, as Christian believers, do we allow fear, or even worse, immortal fear, to invade our lives? 2 Timothy chapter 1 verse 7 says it like this: God has not given us the spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. But I once heard a preacher say it like this: we must not allow our emotions to speak more loudly than what we know. This very simple statement is the key to banishing that which renders us hopeless. One of the first reasons that we should turn around, for me, would be that you might be headed in the wrong direction. Many of us traverse through much of our lives headed in the wrong direction. Unfortunately, we just don't know it at the time. It is during these times that we are determined to operate outside or apart from God's voice, or as I like to call it, my GPS, God's protective shield. We've convinced ourselves that we have it all figured out. Doesn't matter how many warnings that we receive. We have to understand that when God has promised us something, as in his promise to restore Israel, it doesn't matter what adversities lie before us. God has already made provisions for you to get to your promised land. Even when you can't see it with your eyes and you know what God has promised you, you have to believe in your heart that the promise is good. Society would have us to believe that we should be in a continual state of moving forward. Statements and phrases such as "don't look back," "stay on course." What we sometimes fail to remember is that moving forward is relative. Are you moving forward in you or in God? If your plans for your life do not align with God's purpose for your life, then you just might be headed in the wrong direction. Just as a shepherd reroutes his sheep, when he sees that they are veering off course, God must oftentimes reroute us. When God says turn around, despite what our logic tells us, and despite what others may say or think, you better turn around. Ask yourself, are you looking at your current situation, or do you need to turn around and look to the future that God has promised you? The second reason God gave me that we might need to turn around is to gain a better understanding of our surroundings. Have you ever found yourself in a particular circumstance or storm and couldn't quite figure out how you got to this place? This was the case with Jonah. The men on the boat with Jonah initially had no idea what they had done to bring about such a storm. Not realizing that the storm had absolutely nothing to do with them at all. Most would associate turning around with looking over one's shoulder, a shift in direction, or the completion of a 90-degree turn. However, sometimes God needs for us to do a complete 360-degree turnaround in hopes that we are able to get a better understanding of our surroundings. You see, we surround ourselves with people, places, and things that are not intended to be lifetime experiences. Yet we wonder why we don't seem to be moving forward in God's purpose for our lives. Some of us need to do a 360-degree turnaround right now. In order to save themselves from death, the men on the ship with Jonah were forced to cast lots to determine who was responsible. Discovering that it was Jonah, they were forced to throw him overboard. I'm sure they didn't want to. I'm sure that was not the first thought that came to their minds. But the storm was so severe, it was so life-threatening, that they were filled with mortal fear. Can you think of some things or people in your life who need to be thrown overboard? But in order for you to get to where God is having you to go, everybody can't go with you. The third reason that you might want to turn around is to remember where it is that you come from. No matter how far it is that we make it in this life, we must never forget from whence we've come. The journey that we've traveled to make it to this place becomes our living testimony. Without acknowledging your past, it is almost impossible to give God glory for your present. It is good to take time to reflect and to share with others all the things that God has brought you through. Reflection reminds us to never repeat the mistakes of the past, but to instead learn from them. Reflection forces us to remember a time, or two, or three, or four, that we were convinced we wouldn't make it. We were convinced that this was the end. We were convinced that God had forsaken us and that we were unworthy of His grace or His mercy. However, it wasn't the end. God takes so many hopeless situations and turns them into blessings that we should feel compelled to tell somebody. Somebody who is currently feeling that same hopelessness that we once felt. Reflection is also a reminder to us that this too shall pass. And that if God brought us out before, He will do the same. I knew I wouldn't be before you long. God promises in Isaiah 30:21 that your ears will hear a word behind you, saying, "This is the way, walk in it." If we continue to walk in the way that the Word has prescribed for us, in His Word and by His Spirit, we will enjoy great blessing both in this life and in eternity. Amen.